Hello and welcome to Camera Reviews. I want to introduce you to a young lady who I think's a very interesting photographer. Her name is Charlotte Rudd. I discovered Charlotte's work on Trip magazine recently. In fact, about maybe a year to 8, 9, 10 months ago. I was very intrigued by the way she's observing her environment, the people she lives with, her friends, her home, her leisure time. I think she's got a nice way of documenting what's around her. Her project's called Heartlands, and I'm just going to skim through a few of the images here and just have a little discussion and talk about them, maybe offer some constructive criticism, offer, I'm not saying guidance, I'm just my opinion, it doesn't really matter. So I started her edit off with a carpet, an orange shot, as you do. I think it's an orange or a red orange or a grapefruit, and it's top third is what looks like a girl lying on the carpet. Could be a self-portrait. I haven't read any dialogue to go with this picture. It could be just a picture of a girl peeling an orange, and that's what I like about her imagery. I think she shoots a lot off frame. She chops a lot of stuff off around the edges. She leaves you asking questions. The technique I think Charlotte uses is she uses quite a lot of flash. It could be a ring flash. It could be TTLing just straight to the subject. I would guess it's TTL'd. I may be wrong. One of the secrets of being a really good photographer, in my personal opinion, is to visualize, to illustrate, to demonstrate, to show the viewer, other people, the world, exactly how you see the world. And that's one of the secrets. If you see the world as abstract, you see the world with, if you see detail and you want to focus on detail in your everyday views and scans of the world, and that's how you want to develop your style as a photographer and show people exactly how you see it, then that's exactly what it's about. And I think Charlotte does a decent job of that. And I think the shot here of the heart-shaped, swear-wordy little rhyme on the wall, I think it's cool. And I think it adds to the message and the narrative of a story. It's giving you insight, it's tapping in to things around her, which obviously mean stuff to her. And she's inviting you in and saying, what do you make of that? Which is good. I like this shot. I think it's chaotic. It's messy. It's deliberate to get in there in the thick of the action. And I like the fact that that sort of, I presume it's a right foot on the bass drum, just slows the whole shot down. It gives it some sort of balance. It's just a center focus, which helps. But I think it's just quiet, even though I guess there's a lot of noise going on in that shot. I may be wrong. I just like the chaos. I like the whole chaos of her shots. Again, with the wolf mask or the fox mask and the doll and the stripy, it could be a sofa cover or something like that. I just think, again, she's leaving you to ask questions. She's not sort of saying, oh, this is John's or this is Tony's or this is his such and such mask. She's bringing sort of symbolic elements in the shot with the doll and with a sort of fancy dress head, and leaving you to sort of decide what you want to say, what you she's leaving you to make up your mind in the shot. And I think that's a really good trait to have. And I'd like to I'd like to see more photographers challenging that. I'd like to see people experimenting with narrative, and I think when you get somebody like Charlotte who understands how to compose, who understands how to light something, and understands how to deliver different messages. She doesn't really probably care that you understand it or not, but it's about what she cares about and about what she wants to say, and you can make it all mind up. And I think that's one of the things what attracted me to her work. It's sort of everyday objects in a very, I don't even say surreal scenario, because it's just probably everyday things which pass us by every day, we don't see, and somebody like Charlotte does see them, and she documents them, and it's sort of caught in time, and she uses the flash to sort of really emphasize and really almost like an artifact, like a sort of document of capturing every aspect of that thing which is there in sharpness and detail, and actually the things like the ring flash, which you put, that ringy sort of loopy flash you put on the lens, is sort of symbolic of, I think it was initially used for forensic work or some sort of laboratory work, where they would use it to document evidence or something like that, because it had no shadow and it cast no shadow, and as you can see there's no shadow there, and that's why I thought it was either something like a ring flash, and it creates no shadows, it creates everything in the objects sort of in detail, and that is quite symbolic of evidence in a sense, although I do say that there is a bit of a shadow behind a water bottle. So yeah, this sort of stuff, tea towel, knickers, water bottle, bag, all strawn out, party hat on, balloons, gas stuff. It's stuff we all see every day probably, and if that's a student situation, then definitely every day. But when I was a student, and I was really messy and blah blah blah. But I just think, I think it's an interesting. I think it's just an interesting way of capturing that moment of time of that chaos surrounding her life, and it's just great. I have to say, this is one questionable shot. It's like I've never. Who has that much mayonnaise in the house? But unless you're a caterer, it looked like catering wheels. It's probably behind in a pub or something like that. But yeah, I just think it's symbolic. A lot of mayonnaise. It's quite interesting. I like it. Again, she's using the frame, full-on flash again, getting every detail in every aspect of each part of the shot. And she's using the legs and the donkey or the horse or whatever it is on the top far right to sort of drag your eye off to the left. She's dragging your eye off all around the shot. She's taking you on them legs, going up, and she's leaving you asking a question. What's happening to the person who's there. It's all the obvious signs, and I like that. And I think she doesn't need to fill the frame full of information. She's sort of trying to throw information off the frame so you to go, what the heck's this about? I tell you what I'd like to see with a lot of this is I'd like to see some dialogue. I know Charlotte's shot a lot more photography. I know on her website and what the stuff I've seen from this Heartlands project, there's a lot more pictures, and I have to be fair to Charlotte in this edit. I chose to get it. I asked her for some pictures a few weeks ago because I said I was intrigued by the stuff, and she kind of gave me some, and I wanted to do something. I wanted to promote it. I wanted to talk about it, and I sort of placed together in a way I liked. It's not what Charlotte liked. So I've been, to be fair, I've just picked a few pictures and I'm just talking about them to give her some exposure. And so I'd like to see, in this bigger scheme of the project, I'd like to see some narrative dialogue. I'd like to see some text. I'd like to see a storyline in this. And maybe Charlotte doesn't want to do that, which is fair enough. But for me, I think creating some sort of dialogue to link this all together, even if it's like in a diary or a thought process, maybe she's got it. I don't know. I think it might strengthen it. It would give some extra contextual reference to this narrative. There's a shot of the custard, bird's custard with the acorn pine cone thing on top, and sort of again the contrast with guy with the is it Scottish tea cakes or something, or the marshmallow tea cakes, pound in Poundland, love them. Yeah, and it's like what this is a very different style of shot to say the sofa shot, to say the shot of the fruit, grapefruit or whatever it is on the carpet. It's a very different style. It's also vertical. It lends itself in a different way, but it's relevant, and the actual stuff's it's the focus of everything's actually dead in the center of the shot, which she doesn't do that often. So I'm just wondering and questioning if is there something and what the relationship is between this guy and say the grapefruit or the fox mask. This looks like some phallic object. I presume it looks like the base of a gear lever stick off a car, or an old something like an Atari joystick or something. It looks very strange, but I like the fact that I can't even make it out, and I like the fact that it's a bit phallic. I like the false tulips. I like the Dutch style vase, or it could be Dutch or Old English or something like that. I question it. I'm wondering what it's about. I like it. I presume that it's asking a question of falseness, and maybe because it's phallic, it's plastic. I don't know. There's question marks, and it'd be interesting to get a feel of what Charlotte's actually going on about that. With, like I said, with maybe some dialogue within that. This is, I think, the first shot I saw in Trip magazine, and this really led me into her sort of her images and her story of Heartlands and my interest in her work. I think something like this is something which most of us have seen or been in a room where the balloons have went to the ceiling, and I would say not all the time that they're red and black, but we've seen this. We've had helium balloons, they've gone to the ceiling, we think nothing of it, and that's exactly what Charlotte. Not exactly, but what Charlotte's done here is she's shooting. She sees this before she even shot it, and that's what I'm trying to get at. She sees this perspective. She sees these balloons. She sees it in the style of the flash. She knows technically how it's going to look in her mind, and this is what us photographers do when we're trying to tell stories, when we're trying to develop narratives. We see the shot. We know how we're going to light it. We see that. We're looking for things. We're looking for signs. We're looking for the decisive moment, and we know. And because Charlotte is not conventional in her approach, that doesn't matter. What Charlotte's doing is she's telling us how she sees the world, and I want to see more. And I'm really interested. And maybe Charlotte, if you do listen to this, and I've waffled on for a little bit, and I just want to give some perspective to your work, and that I would like to see some dialogue in this. I'd like to see where you're going with the images. I'd like to see how you're going to add, or maybe you don't want to add text, but I'd like to see some. I think something in a dialogue would, some text in here would really bring this home and give us something to tie it up. Anyway, thank you. Well done, Charlotte. And if I see any more of your work, I'm going to ask you for it, and we'll have a little review on camera reviews.